Okay, now that we've seen a couple examples of unit conversion, let's look at some more examples, some things that you might see on a homework or even on a Regents. So, number one, we'll go pretty much in order. Convert 1 centigram to grams. Okay, so even if you don't know off the top of your head what a centigram is, don't panic. First thing you have to do is write down the number that you're given. So 1 centigram. Now, you see the word gram in there, so you can probably guess that the centi part is is a prefixed unit. So even if you don't remember what centi means, that's not a big deal. All you have to do is turn over to your reference table, or just look at this chart, and you can see that centi is right here and means 10 to the second, meaning that 10 to the negative second meters is equal to 1, or excuse me, 10 to the negative second grams is equal to 1 centigram. So, the abbreviation being CG, you write down CG. Now you set up your unit conversion. You want to cancel out of CG. You don't want to be in centigrams anymore, so we're going to put that on the bottom so that it'll cancel out. And we're going to write grams up top. Now remember, the notation column right here tells us how many base units we should have for one prefix unit. So that'll be 10 to the second grams for 1 centigram. And if you're thinking, wait a second, I see an easier way to do this, I'm going to address that in just a second. Now we do the math. Centigrams cancels out with centigrams. We simply do 1 times 10, raised to the second, divided by 1, and that would be 0.01 grams. 1 centigram is 1/100th of a gram, and that makes sense based on the chart that we saw. Now, another way to do this. Okay, I'm going to show you another way to do this. Let me see, can you see this? No, not quite. Let me move this down a little bit. You could also do this. Let's say you have 1 centigram and you want to convert. It's going to start by getting set up the exact same way, grams. Now remember, you could say that the notation that 10 to the negative 2 means how many base units fit inside one prefixed unit, how many grams are in a centigram. If you reverse the sign, if you take the positive, it's how many prefix units could fit in a base unit. So instead, we could also write this. 1 gram is equal to, because remember these measurements have to be equal, 10 to the second centigrams. That's another possibility. And if you watch, this comes out the exact same way. You do 1 times 1, that's obviously going to be 1, divided by 10 squared. 10 squared is 100. I divide 1 by 100, I get 0.01 grams. So, again, for negative exponents, one thing that you can think about how many prefix units could fit in a base unit. You don't have to think about it like that, but you're welcome to if you want to. Now, if this seems very confusing to you and you're like, I'm never going to remember this, remember, the biggest part of this is making sure that you get it set up right. If you can get it set up right, we can teach you how to work with the numbers, okay? Once you practice this a bunch of times, it becomes very common. Force of habit, basically. Okay, numbers 2. Convert 4 megaseconds into seconds. So I have 4 megaseconds. Let's just look up the abbreviation for megaseconds, just like I thought. It's a capital M. So we're going to put 4 ms, capital MS, by the way, because lowercase would be milli. 4 ms. We're trying to convert to seconds. So ms is going to go on the bottom. S goes up top. Cancel, cancel. Now, the only thing that I need to do is I need to figure out, well, what is the relationship between megaseconds and seconds? The notation column says that mega is 10 to the 6th. So that means that it's 10 to the 6th seconds for 1 megasecond. So I'm multiplying 4 times 10 raised to the 6th, and I get this, 4 million. Or you could even write this as 4 times 10 to the 6th. Literally just run those two together, there you go. You have scientific notation. One last one that's kind of simple. Convert 3.3 kilometers to meters. 3.3 km for kilometers. I'm going to cancel that out, so I'm going to put it on the bottom. Meters up here. How many kilometers are in a meter? Kilo is 10 to the third, which is 1,000. So I can either write 10 to the third or 1,000, but that tells us how many meters are in a kilometer. So I have 1 meter, 1,000 meters, 1 kilometer. Another way to kind of check yourself is if you were going to do about what I was about to do there. Notice that the bigger number should go with the smaller unit, right? Because that makes sense. If you're trying to get two things that are equal in measurement, the bigger number should go with the smaller unit. So 1,000 goes with a meter because a meter is smaller than a kilometer. 1 goes with the kilometer. Imagine if you had 1 meter and 1,000 kilometers. 1,000 kilometers is like the distance from here to, like, I don't know, like North Carolina, probably, approximately. 1 meter is, you know, just a little bit longer than your arm. Those are not equal measurements, so that doesn't make sense to do. In any case, we now do 3.3 times 1,000, and that's 3,300 meters. Or, if you want, 3.3 times 10 to the third meters. You don't have to put answers in scientific notation, but sometimes I just like to. All right, we'll do a few more of these. Sometimes a conversion can take more than one step. This usually happens when you don't know what the direct conversion from one unit to another is, but you do know multiple separate conversions that can be combined to get that answer. So for example, how many centimeters are in a kilometer? You might say, well, that's easy. We have this chart here, but that chart, the notation, only tells us how to convert from one of these prefix units into the base unit. It doesn't tell us how to get from one prefix unit to the next. But there's a way around that. In 1 kilometer, so that's what we're starting off with. I don't know how many centimeters are in a kilometer, but I do know how many meters are in a kilometer. So let me convert to that first. I set up my conversion from kilometers to meters. I know that, because we just did this above, 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters, or 10 to the third if you want. And I'm going to show you this, kind of doing this 2 steps. This would give me, kilometers cancel out, 1,000 meters. Okay, is that where what I want for my answer? No, but it's factual. There is 1,000 meters in a kilometer. I want to know how many centimeters there are in a kilometer. So this measurement that's equal to a kilometer, I'm just going to unit convert again. Instead of meters, I'm going to convert from meters to centimeters this time. And you really should know how many centimeters are in a meter. When you think of centimeter, you need to think of cents. How many cents are in a dollar? 100. How many centimeters are in a meter? 100. Okay? You could alternatively say that 1 centimeter is 0.01 meters, a hundredth of a meter, but I think this one's pretty easy to remember. Now we simply do 1,000 times 100, and we end up with 100,000 centimeters are in 1 kilometer. So, and I kind of did show you an example of this earlier, but there are multiple ways, there are multiple ways of doing this. You can do everything all at once, like I did in this example down here, or you could separate it out into 2 different steps. I'm going to do the reverse now. How many kilometers are in a centimeter? So instead of asking this time how many of the little centimeters are in 1 kilometer, I'm asking what fraction of a kilometer is a centimeter. It's the reverse problem. So we're just going to do the reverse. I don't know the direct conversion between centimeters and kilometers. That's what I'm trying to find out. But instead, I'm going to use kind of a medium ground. I'm going to convert from centimeters to meters. Then I'm going to convert from meters to kilometers. Okay? You can do this any way you want. That's just the easiest way that occurs to me. If you happen to know the direct conversion between centimeters and kilometers, by all means, go ahead and use it. But I doubt you do, because not many people remember that. Okay, so I have centimeters on the bottom, meters up top, so I can cancel out the centimeters. There are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. And I'm not going to do an intermediate step, I'm just going to keep going. Now I want to convert from meters to kilometers. Meters is up top here, so it's got to go down here, so it cancels out. km, cross, cross. There are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So I'm going to do 1 divided by 100 divided by 1,000. Now you might be saying, wait a second, shouldn't it be 1 times 1 divided by 100? Well, we know that multiplying by 1 isn't going to do anything. So all I'm doing is realizing that if I have this number out here and I'm multiplying by this fraction of 1 over 100, it's the same as dividing by 100, and then dividing by 1,000. And so the answer that I get is 0.00001 kilometers. In other words, a centimeter is a tiny fraction of a kilometer. I've got one more example like this, and then we'll get back into doing conversions from the American system, the imperial system, over to the metric system. How many milligrams are in 0.7 gigagrams? So we're starting off with 0.7. I'm going to look up the conversion for gigagram. A giga is capital G, and it's 10 to the 9th. Gigagrams. And we're converting to milligrams. I don't know the direct conversion between giga and milli, so I'm going to convert from giga to just regular old grams, and then from grams to milligrams. So I'm going to do this in 2 steps. So giga is up here, so I'm going to write gigagrams down here, and then grams up here. Now again, this is where people get confused. They don't know what numbers to fill in. All you have to remember, which number or which unit is bigger. Gigagram is huge. Giga means really, really big. Okay, anything on the top of that chart that has a positive exponent means a big unit. The big unit should get the smaller number next to it. So 1 gigagram is 10 to the 9th grams. Okay, it even makes sense. 10 to the 9th grams, 1 giga means 10 to the 9th, and then we have grams. So it's like we have the exact same thing here, and that makes sense. It should be the same measurement. So that'll get me out of gigagrams and into grams. Now I just need to convert to milligrams. Grams is up here, so grams is going to go down here. Milligrams goes up top. 1 gram is equal to 1,000 milligrams. Milli means 1,000, okay? Milligram is small, so that has to have the bigger number next to it. Now I just do the math. 0.7 times 10 raised to the 9th times another 1,000, and I get, I don't know if you can see that there, 7 times 10 to the 11th milligrams. In 0.7 gigagrams, there are 7 times 10 to the 11th milligrams. And that makes sense because you went from a very large unit to a much smaller unit, so that makes sense that the amount of the much smaller unit would be much higher. We'll end this video with a couple examples of converting from the American system of measurement into the metric system. Now, there's a couple of conversions that I tend to remember when converting from the American system to the metric system. And here's one of them. You might even need to use it on homework. On a test or a quiz, this would be given to you. 1 inch, and I remember being young and seeing this written on rulers in really, really small print. 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. If that's true, how many meters are there in 1 yard? Now, some of you might be tempted to say, well, they're the same thing. A meter and the yard are the same thing. Not quite. They're not quite the same thing. So we want to know how a meter compares to a yard. We're starting with yards. So 1 yard, I'll just write it out, 1 yard. Now, let's think about this. How are we going? We eventually want to figure out how many meters there are in a yard. So we need to get from yards to meters. I don't know the direct conversion between yards and meters. So what I need to do is kind of go around. I need to think of what I do know the conversion between. I know the conversion between yard and feet. There are 3 feet in a yard. I also know the conversion, because it's written on the front, between yard and inches. There's 36 inches in 1 yard because there's 3 feet in a yard, and there's 12 inches in a foot. So I'm going to convert this to inches. So that means yard's going to go on the bottom. 1 yard, 36 inches is going to go up here. Cross that off. Now I have a number of inches. Now I'm going to take advantage of this fact that's written right here. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So I have inches up top. Inches is going to go down there. Centimeters is going to go up here. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. Cancel, cancel for inches. I have now in centimeters. I want to be in meters though. So now I just convert from centimeters to meters. Centimeters down here, meters up here. There are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. Now what math am I going to do for this? Well, I have 1 yard times 36 over 1 times 2.54 over 1 times 1 over 100. That means I can take my 1 and multiply by 36, multiply it by 2.54, and then divide by 100. And I end up with 1 yard is equal to 0.9144 meters. In other words, a yard is just a little bit short of a full meter. If you've ever compared a yardstick and a meter stick, you know this to be the case. A yard is exactly 36 inches. A meter is a little bit more than 39. I've got one more example like that, and it has to do with converting mass amounts. If 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds, and that's another good one to remember, keep in the back of your head. If you ever need it, I will give it to you, but it's a good one to remember. If 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds, convert 500 ounces into kilograms. So we have 500 OZ for ounces. How are we going to convert this? We need to get out of ounces. Okay, well, I know that there's 16 ounces to 1 pound, so there's the abbreviation for pound. 1 pound, 16 ounces. And then I need to use my conversion from pounds to kilograms. And that's given right here. 2.2 pounds is 1 kg. And in this case, you would take 500, divide by 16, and divide by 2.2. So 500 divided by 16, divided by 2.2 equals 14.2. I'll say 14.205. Okay, so 500 ounces, a very light unit, so it's a higher number, equals 14.205 kilograms. A kilogram is much bigger than an ounce, so the number is smaller. The measurements are exactly the same, but just how we're stating them is different. Okay, that's the whole point of unit conversion. I'm going to make one more video, and the next video I make will be about converting more complicated units. As you can see below, we're going to be converting speeds. Okay, I'll be right back.